audience, there's somebody who says, I need to hear something that'll make me happy. Well, you're about to hear it. Boom! We're going to hit you hard. Rob Browne in Memphis, Tennessee. Brenden Martin in Ocala, Florida with cold coffee. I got the Hewlett and Dunn mug. Hot coffee with some good Baileys in there. I am a good Scotch-Irish Catholic, so make that a daily occurrence. Right now, do us a favor. We got a great lineup, and we're going to be joined by Jake Wimberly, ESPN 105.9, The Afternoon Drive in Jackson, Mississippi. Also, Loren Meadows. Low Down with Loren Meadows, part of the GatorbaitMedia.com family. Really smart guy, too. Will be on with us, as is Vince Ferrara, the sports animal, up in Knoxville. So, hour of power starts, but do this. Be cool. Take a picture with your phone of the QR codes, because we're live on Twitter, X, Twix, Facebook, and YouTube. Lots of stuff to talk about today. As my professors would always say before class would start, get pen, pencil, and paper handy, because you're going to learn a lot in this hour of power. So let's get started. Let's bring in a 6'1", 193-pound sophomore from Kosciuszko, Mississippi, Jake Wimberly. There's movement in the aisles I see here at Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi, as Jake Wimberly comes on. Boy, what a player he is. Jake, you are brilliant with these numbers. And I'm looking at an article, I always give credit where it's due, The Athletic this morning, about the preseason. The number 1 and 2 teams didn't even make the playoff. The number 4 team, Clemson, didn't make it. Number 6, Notre Dame. In fact, only 5 of the teams in the preseason top 17 made the 12-team playoff field. So, first off, thank you more than you know for sharing your time with us. Always a little bit of there's so much to cover today, but was this different? How different was this from what your preseason top teams were?
Rob, good morning. Good morning to Brenden too. Appreciate you guys having me. Happy holidays and Merry
Always.
Christmas.
You bet.
It definitely was a little different this year. Took a kind of a hit on the numbers, but I mean a lot of people took hit on the numbers. And look, we talked about this a few weeks ago on my show. Is when you go back to the preseason and you look in today where we are today, and I think there's several reasons for this. Penn State, Texas, and Clemson were the media darlings around the country. Most people had Texas, a lot of people had Penn State, and then a lot of people had Clemson. And look, it made sense when you looked at the numbers for all 3 teams. I think Clemson is probably the biggest anomaly because they had the youngest roster coming back off a college football playoff berth last year, plus a quarterback, that you felt like in Cade Klubnik was going to be a Heisman contender. All 3 of those teams, as you mentioned, plus Notre Dame, did not make the playoffs. Also, all of your Heisman favorites, from Drew Aller to Klubnik, Arch Manning, you go down to Garrett Nussmeier, none of those guys were even close. So everybody's asking what's going on because this whole table's turned upside down. Here's Kurt Cignetti in Indiana, and you got a quarterback from Indiana who wins the Heisman. You look around the country at Texas Tech, you look at Miami, you look at some other teams in this field. I think what we're seeing, and again, the data size is really, really small, is it's going to get harder and harder to project who are the top teams in college football because the transfer portal and money are absolutely making a big dent in what we thought we knew, traditionally what we knew. And we've got to figure out how to quantify it. It's going to be very tough to do. Now we're moving to nine-game schedules in the SEC, 9-game schedules for most of the ACC. Look, we love it. The ratings are up. It's fantastic. It's chaos, Rob. Absolute chaos.
It is. And Dr. David Arnoff, love this guy. One of the best doctors anywhere in the Florida Panhandle. Happy Hanukkah, Dr. Arnoff. And also going to say to him, I know the first present he got was a 9-game SEC schedule. I told you I was going to go as a 9-game conference schedule for Halloween. Jake, the SEC guys, Dari Noka, Gene Chizik, Cole Kubelik, Roman Harper, Chris Doring, they've been doing a great job of breaking it down. And it's way too early to say who got the toughest schedule. My take on it is they're all tough. Like, you graduate from medical school, you're still a doctor.
No, I agree. I mean, look, everybody's going to, not everybody, but a lot of teams are going to get an extra loss. And, I think as fans, we've got to try to wrap our heads around this. does 9-3 become the new 10-2? Does 8-4 become the new 9-3? Because I mean, you've only got 3 games that you're going to play that are non-conference, and a lot of these teams are still playing these pretty tough. You know, you look at LSU; they're hosting Clemson coming up this year in 26. What is realistic for everybody? And you know, and when I say everybody, I'm talking about administrators, athletic directors, presidents of universities. Because when you pour the dollars in that these schools are paying for coaches and fans are paying for tickets, everybody across the board has a short leash on what defines success and how quickly they should get there. I think this is another reason we need to expand to 16 teams in the college football playoff, just because I think the dynamics of the game have changed so much and so quickly, by the way.
Well, they have, and then you start looking around at what is happening in college football with the portal. I think the portal is a lot worse than the NIL money because, you know, look, again, flush out your headgear, virgins out there. Players have always been getting paid. I went to college. I used to walk by the athletic dorm to class. I mean, come on. You know, I mean, that's naive to think, oh, our school doesn't cheat. I've had coaches tell me at different schools, I mean, they said, we didn't have to. Our boosters did it for us. So
Right.
Throw that out the window. It's the portal that's the problem. If you survey coaches, that's the problem. Jake, everything is connected by numbers. Dad was an architect, practiced till he was 90. He used to say, it's all numbers. You don't hang a picture without, like an engineer and architect, looking at the beam, 16 inches, 14 inches on the interior, find that stud. I'm going to ask you about Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby. I think they're brilliant to take that bowl bid. Other schools didn't because they said they had a coaching transition or whatever. And I can understand there's a lot of chaos there. That's an extra 20 days of practice and an extra 20 days for your team to bond with one another. I typically think people go to Mississippi State because they love the school. It's more of a destination school. People don't just randomly go there. I think players that go to Mississippi State are a lot like that too. I think the kids that go there love that school more than you realize. And that's a big deal in the portal age.
No, it is. I mean, obviously the money is important to these young men. It's important to their families. And, you know, we can go down that road of, you know, I always laugh and joke about it when you see a player, something on X will say a player in his camp or evaluating like who's in the camp. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, who's in Rob Browne's camp, who's in Brendan's camp, you know, who's in my camp. But all jokes aside, I think you're right. I mean, there is something to, you know, a place where you can go and you can feel comfortable. You know, Starkville is a really nice town. It's growing by leaps and bounds, continues to grow, and there's a lot of nice towns. So there is something to that. But I agree with you. I think and I know a lot of people eye roll a lot of times. Well, the 15 practices. No, think about this. Kamario Taylor gets 15 to 20 more practices. He gets an extra ball game. That goes a long way. That's an extra spring practice. And you know, if they can keep a lot of these guys on this campus, and you know, get them paid, and then work the portal the right way. This could be a team next year that, you know, that the schedule is like everybody else's. It is loaded with possible losses on that schedule or 4 quarter type ball games, 1 game possession type ball games. But I think for Jeff Lebby, he's doing the right things. He's making the right moves. And again, it's just going to be patience out of that fan base.
Yeah, it is. And you look also in flip side in Mississippi where you are, Ole Miss. And I don't know what the reaction is every day from 3 to 6 on your great show, ESPN 105.9. Folks, catch it. Put the app on your phone, the afternoon drive. Listening to Jake Wimberly, this is the compliment I give people if you read or you listen to them. It's like lifting weights with your brain, okay? You got to do it. And Loren Meadows is going to join us in just a minute from GatorbaitMedia.com. I want him to get in this conversation. Before Loren comes on, Jake, the Ole Miss situation. You got some coaches that went to the press conference in Baton Rouge, but they're going to coach in the playoffs. Ole Miss, and I'm pulling for them. I mean, that's going to be an incredible deal. Don't overlook Tulane. John Summerall is going to want to do everything he can to win this game because they got beat the first time. I think Ole Miss wins. I think Tulane covers late.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility of that. I mean, if you look back at the first game, Ole Miss doubled them up on yards. That game was over, you know, fairly quickly.
Yeah.
You have to wonder, you know, what is the stability of the offensive side of the football? You know, obviously Charlie Weiss Jr. going to be calling plays. You know, as Lane Kiffin, you know, there's been some joke around and saying, hey, on our show that, you know, listeners that say, hey, Lane's probably still coaching this thing from the shadows. just because he's got, some vested money tied in possibly to success of Ole Miss. All that said, I mean, I think Ole Miss wins. I wouldn't play the line. I mean, I may would play the total, maybe go under the total. Maybe it's a little closer ball game. Maybe it's a little lower scoring ball game. But when you look at Ole Miss moving forward, the difference, I think, in Ole Miss, for instance, and even Mississippi State, and this doesn't mean that Mississippi State isn't doing good things, is I was telling somebody privately this yesterday, is Ole Miss has a system built that works. And yes, Kiffin was a big part of that, but their collective with Walker Jones, the administration, Keith Carter, their fan base, their donors, they have shown that they are one of the best as far as a true collective of people, not the collective, but the collective of people that understand what they want and how to get it. And that is going to, bring big dividends for this new coaching staff into 2026. I think to have that kind of back end support.
Yeah, I mean, I do. And you've got, Mississippi State, they're going to want to go out and raise more money. You play in a bowl game. I don't give a damn who you're playing. You play in a bowl game. A lot of people watch you. Millions of people are going to watch that game. The non-big super, New Year's 6 CFP games, last year, those other games drew an average of 2.73 million viewers per video. Because ESPN, they're going to sell the ad package. Hey, man, 3.5 hours, 4 hours, you never know with reviews. You got an infomercial. I mean, that's just what they do. Let's bring in a 6'4", 230-pound junior from Dayton, Ohio, The Rock.
Try 5'7", 180 pounds.
Well, a rock. I don't know if you know Jake Wimberly from Jackson.
How you doing, Jake? Good to see you.
Hey, Loren. Good to see you, brother.
All right.
Loren, we're having a really cool discussion. And Jake, if you can stay with us till half past the hour, we'd love to have you go long today. And thanks for having me on your show. I love being on your show Friday. You got a great producer too. And that is a fast-paced show. I mean, you better pull out of your driveway doing 150. I love it. I love it. Loren, we talked about the top 4 teams in the preseason. Penn State, Texas, Clemson. None of them in the playoff. Only 5 of the preseason top 17 made the 12-team playoff. Were you shocked at that? And how were your numbers looking at preseason?
Yeah, I was really shocked. I think you can go from, you take a team like Penn State, who I'm not sure that Penn State was necessarily a top 5 team. They had some questions, lost a lot, the tight end and who really made the offense go and, some key parts there. But I think, you look at Texas and Clemson. Clemson was supposed to have a top 10 defense. Didn't really pan out that way. I think they thought that the quarterback would come along a little better. The running game, they'd be a little bit more explosive. You can even throw Florida in there. You have Florida kind of as a backdoor playoff pick, and then Texas. I mean, Texas, you look at Arch Manning. I thought Arch Manning had a really good year when you really look at it. Maybe didn't live up to expectations, but when you look at going to a buzzsaw right out the gate at Ohio State, having to play at Florida, where Florida probably played their best. And you guys know how it is. The boulder starts rolling down the hill. You just can't stop it. And yeah. Florida had their stuff that day. And that shows you the parity in the SEC. I mean, hell, Vanderbilt won 10 games. When we ever think we would see that? So
never.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at, like you said, the top 3, you look at James Franklin, despite what people think is a winner. You look at Dabo Swinney, a guy with 2 national titles, 2, right? 3?
Yeah,
2. And has played for a couple others. I mean, so you look at that and you think, man, with the tradition of some of these schools, a guy like Sarkisian calling plays, the legacy of the Mannings, the running game, a really stout defensive line. I mean, it puts itself out there, but it's like we talk about on my show and other shows. It's those Saturdays in the fall. Talking season is for people like us to talk and speculate. But when it comes down to it, you got to line it up, buckle it up, spot the ball, as a lot of people say. And, I always tell my friends, they always talk about, well, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. Well, I remind them the other team practices too.
Yeah.
They line up and lift those weights and run those sprints just like we do. And they got kids on scholarship too. So when you play an LSU and you're Clemson, Well, that kid had the opportunity to go to Clemson as well. He probably had the opportunity to go to Alabama, probably had the opportunity to go to Texas, Ohio State. They got good players too. And there's a fine line, particularly with the transfer portal, of where this thing could go. And if you're not tight in every phase of the game, it come back to bite you.
Yeah, you'll get left behind. Jake, speaking of that, I want to switch out to Oklahoma and Alabama. You think about that game, and Loren says the way I do. Alabama had 3 turnovers. It's not like they stood there and threw the ball and said, Oklahoma, here, catch. Oklahoma forced it. They knocked your head off. Brent Venables has brought Oklahoma up in 2 years to SEC. I mean, maybe the best defense in the country. Now, John Mateer's hand is the big story. It has been since he got hurt. What do you think happens in Norman? It's going to be cold. Ain't a lot of trees in Oklahoma, not a lot of corn. It's cattle country. It's going to be really cold. Not like Alabama hadn't played in cold weather, but if they lose this game, Oklahoma can say, we've beaten Alabama 3 times in the last 13 months. That ain't going to settle well in Tuscaloosa.
No, excuse me. No, it will not settle well in Tuscaloosa. And I'm trying to pull up our efficiency charts because, I'm a big efficiency kind of guy.
Yep.
And when you look at some of the numbers, especially the last 2 years, and you reference, let me just pull this up real quick and try to find what I'm looking for here. And I don't necessarily, there we go. So when you look at Oklahoma the last 2 years and, the 2 wins, the first thing you got to go to is say, hey, look, does Brent Venables obviously knows he's kind of a step ahead against Kalen DeBoer and that type of offense, understands what he's up against. He's been able to create those turnovers. Because remember, for me, I look at, and I know a lot of people do, there's turnovers and there's takeaways, and Oklahoma will take the football away. When you look at the overall efficiency numbers, Alabama, the 16th best offensive scoring efficiency team in the country, and the 9th best defensive scoring efficiency team. Oklahoma, conversely, as you referenced, 4th defensively, 54th offensively. So what this comes down to me is I think if you were a gamer, like playing it on sports gaming, which I am, you take the under on the total. I think first team to 24 is going to win. That's what the last 2 matchups have shown us. Oklahoma at 23 and 24 won the football game. In this game, though, I like Oklahoma by just a little bit, just because it's in Norman. They play very, very hard there. They play well there. You watch them against Michigan earlier this year, what they did against Alabama. I think they rattle Ty Simpson this weekend just a little bit, or just enough. And then John Mateer, of course, they've got to get him back running the football. I wouldn't be surprised if John Mateer touched the football 20 times this weekend on Friday night. I like Oklahoma to win by just a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised if Alabama gets the win, though.
All right, another one. The Athletic, Loren, has which team will win it all. They got Georgia at 50%, Ohio State at 42%, Indiana at 4%, and Oregon at 4%. We're going to start doing a little bit of rapid fire pickleball or ping pong. Pickleball is half tennis.
I'm addicted to pickleball, by the way. I play
my son. Yeah, I haven't played it yet.
I'm addicted. I played last night. I'll probably play again. I got to do the radio for the women's basketball team tonight, so I'm off tonight. But probably tomorrow night, and then probably Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. So
it's addictive, and a lot of the kids. It gets people off the couch. I can tell you that,
no doubt.
All right, what do you think about those odds? And I'm gonna go back to Jake. Georgia 50, Ohio State 42, Indiana and Oregon way down the list. You don't even see Oklahoma or Alabama or Ole Miss listed on that particular, but they only chose those 4 teams.
Right, sure. I think that when you look at it, I'm a little partial to Ohio State for the long term when you're talking about a team that I think is built to play in any type of environment, so to speak. I think Sane was a little – that Indiana game may be an outlier because I thought on a couple Indiana big plays, there were some blatant holding calls that probably weren't called that came back to bite Ohio State. And, I thought Ohio State kind of lived in the backfield. And like I said, I think in a neutral field, in some situations, I like Ohio State pretty much against anybody. You got to give Georgia credit. They're the champs of the SEC. It's the best conference in football. And you could say, I think it's a 2 to 3 horse race, Indiana, Oregon. But I like Ohio State there. I do. But I think the odds maybe set themselves is you're talking about Ohio State playing a semifinal game or a quarterfinal game in Dallas against either Texas A&M and Miami. Now, I would love to see if Miami wins that game and Ohio State has to play Miami in Dallas. It'll be definitely a pro. I think Dallas is maybe fourth highest per capita alumni in the country for Ohio State, alumni.
Wow.
So it would definitely be an Ohio State home game then. But a Texas A&M game in Ohio State obviously be a Texas A&M game. So I think when you look at the road, you got Georgia playing in New Orleans against either Ole Miss or Tulane. Even if Tulane wins, it would still be a Georgia home game. As you heard Tony say on my show, it was like a ghost town for Tulane the day of a game. It's a lot. They're like probably maybe fourth or fifth in that state. So I think when you look at that, that's maybe why Ohio State may sit a little bit under Georgia. Georgia's, I think, got the more favorable road, so to speak. So I like those odds, but I would say, Indiana is an interesting tale because I think they're a well-coached football team and they bring a certain level of physicality, particularly, and I think this is hard to ignore sometimes. And me as a former receiver, I look at the physicality of the perimeter. They got some physical guys on the perimeter that can even the script a little bit. Reminds me of some of those guys that Urban had, on the 06, 07, 08 team. Those guys are physical when they get the football, when they're blocking, things like that. So, I would say, when you look at those odds, I would say that's probably the case. If you want to throw, I'm sure Texas Tech seems a little offended by those odds, particularly, it'd be interesting to see that game, that throwdown in Miami between what looks to be Oregon and Texas Tech. But I would say it's a 2 to 3 horse race, Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State. But on a neutral field, I like Ohio State against Indiana as well. I don't necessarily call Indianapolis a neutral field, but a second shot. I think if they play that game 10 times, Ohio State wins it 7. So
I would agree with that. Jake, what Loren just said is right. You get out on the perimeter, you hit people hard. As the second and third and fourth quarter go along, you get tired of getting hit like that. Your will, you can weaken somebody. Jake, Texas Tech, we're not hearing a lot about them. He brought him up. Joey McGuire has got a really good squad. Their defense is the best they've probably had in school history at Texas Tech. What kind of chance do you give the Red Raiders? Guns up.
Guns up. Love Texas Tech, but I don't love them to win it. I love what they're doing. Now, again, to explain why I go back to the efficiencies, if you look at the offensive and defensive scoring efficiencies, I've explained this on here before, and you can go all the way back to like 2002. The teams that win the national title typically live in the offensive and defensive scoring efficiencies at 15, ranked 15 and in, 1 to 15, right? So there's some outliers. Auburn's offense with Cam Newton was somewhere around 17th to 20th. Their defense was right around in there. And of course, Cam Newton was the big outlier there. All that to say, without boring you with numbers, Texas Tech, they have the number 1 defensive scoring efficiency team in the country. And we know how good they are, but they're 22nd on the offensive side. So that would tell me they're likely going to bog down at some point and their offense is going to get a bit in a problem, potentially against an Oregon team in round 2, the second round after the bye, against an Indiana team if they can't score it. I mean, I like Texas Tech as this team is set. But, when you look at the bracket, if you're just looking at the bracket, the right side with Texas A&M, Ohio State, Georgia, Ole Miss, that's a much harder side of the bracket than what Oregon, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Indiana, Alabama have. So, when you start talking about these odds and you look at these teams, does it make sense? Well, Ohio State is the 6th best offensive scoring team in the country, efficiency-wise, the 2nd best defensively. So they check the numbers as a national championship type team. Indiana, the same way, number 5 and number 3. Georgia, number 12 and 15. It's a little bit off the numbers just a bit. Miami, this would tell you at 19 and 6, and then Texas A&M 13 and 14. That's a pretty even matchup. All that to say, if you comb through this, I like Texas Tech. I don't like them to get to the championship. They could. That matchup with Oregon in the second round, I think, is a coin flip type ball game. But Ohio State, even though they have the best odds, might have the toughest road because Texas A&M and Dallas, as Loren said, then having to play Georgia and then having to play, Indiana or Oregon or Alabama or Oklahoma. Now, they showed last year they have the juice to do that. If you're making me pick a champion today, I would probably lean Ohio State just a little bit. but I wouldn't be surprised to see, Dan Lanning in Oregon finally, pull this thing off and maybe, hit lightning in a bottle, or Georgia come back and win the thing as well. In Indiana, look, let's not sleep on Kurt Sigley. I think we need to, and I'm not saying everybody is. I know I did. I need to stop doing that.
Well,
yeah.
Well, there's something about being from West Virginia and having that just ass personality, Nick Saban, Kurt Signetti, Pittsburgh. Okay. Tough ass people, Taps. Okay.
Shout out to West Virginia. That's where my folks are from.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
shout out to the people from West Virginia.
Lauren, you're right though. I mean, they're just, Kurt Signetti, Dave Bartu said on the show, what we witnessed the last 4 years from Kurt Signetti at JMU with the Dukes for 2 years in Harrisonburg, Virginia, up there 71 and 66, and on the way into DC. But that in the 2 years he's been in Indiana, he goes, that's the greatest run I've seen in my lifetime. And Dave is 56. And that's a powerful statement, guys. And look, and look, I'm going to let Jake, I know you got to get going. And for the rest of your day. But Jake, let people know how they can follow. Lauren, stay with us if you can.
Yes, sir.
Minutes. Okay, we got Vince Ferrara coming in. But Jake, your numbers, they make sense. Football, and it all goes back to that degree in civil engineering. I love the I love this. Maury Gaston's watching this show right now, recovering from some heart surgery. Said he's exhausted, but he watches the show every day. Normally he comments a lot, but he's a mechanical engineer. I promise you, that when you get an engineer brain involved as a football coach, that could be scary. Because engineers make everything move. But let people know how they can follow you. And as always, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us, okay?
Absolutely. Hey, it's easy. Just on X at Jake Wim. We'll be on 3 to 6 today, ESPN Radio in Central Mississippi. We cover 2/3 of the state, 105.9 on the FM dial. You can also stream it on the zone1059.com. Lorian, great to meet you. Rob, take care. Brenden, keep Rob straight. You guys take care. Merry Christmas.
Boom.
Merry Christmas. Happy holiday.
All right, let's bring in Vince Ferrara, a proud native son of Tampa, Florida. You got Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. I love it down there. I love that bridge that goes way across the bay. Vince, this is Loren Meadows. I believe y'all have met in the press box up at Venerable Neyland Stadium.
Yes,
is it now? What's the name of it was Shields Watkins Field.
It is.
Okay. And the pilot, tell me about the pilot's involvement real quick, because Audrey's cousin Mark Ham is on an advisory board with Dondi Plowman, your chancellor. They meet a couple of times a month. And Mark and my wife bleed orange and white. And every time we stop, they want to go to a pilot gas station because they feel like that helps Tennessee. Is that true?
I don't know that direct association.
You do not know that.
I don't. It can't hurt.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of the sponsorship, they have their name, obviously. They have the logo all over the stadium and on the field. And, even at the basketball arena, Thompson Bowen Arena, Food City Center, it's in the name there as well. So yeah, they're all over the place. And even when they do announcements and releases and certain things, that Pilot is involved in those. So yeah, they're definitely front and center in a lot of ways with that sponsorship.
All right, Tennessee. Tim Banks now on the staff at Auburn. I'm sure Alex Golich and him coached together for a couple of years. They probably had a road soda or two or some borscht. I don't know. But what do you know about Tim Banks? What happened with Tennessee's defense? Rodney Garner's still coaching the defensive line. Coach G, as they call him. That's one of the toughest people. If you play for him, you better bring it every day, or he will make you wish you had never taken up football.
Well, it's TBD on how the staff looks like now with Jim Knowles as the defensive coordinator. Wow. Interestingly enough, Rodney Garner is the only on-field coach with an expiring contract. Now, you can try to read a lot into that. I just think it means that Jim Knowles is evaluating everybody on his defensive staff. And then to me, it should be a no-brainer to bring him back. I don't care what your defensive philosophy is. He's one of the best defensive line coaches in the country. He's put 35-ish, something like that.
48.
Is it 48? Yeah.
48 in the NFL.
In the NFL. So it there to me, there's no reason why you wouldn't keep him regardless of your scheme. And Jim Knowles is a veteran. He knows Rodney Garner, and to me, there should be no reason not to bring him back. But you just never know. Jim Knowles has worked with so many different people. It's not like he's got a number of guys that have followed him to all his stops.
Yeah.
So, that's a TBD on whether Garner or any of the other coaches would be a part of this coaching staff. But what happened? The tackling is the biggest thing that happened, and they weren't as good on their run defense. Their D line. Speaking of Ronnie Garner, it wasn't as deep. I think we underestimated losing some of the veterans they did on the D line, a couple of which went to the NFL. And so they still ran basically 11-man rotation, 12-man at times, and they were just younger on the back end, and they just weren't as good. And so, plus they were hurt early in the year, and then you have their 2 starting corners. Now, does that explain a lot of the bad tackling and guys getting out of their gaps? It kind of, I think it all snowballed and you added to it, but they got better under Tim Banks every year except for this past year.
Yeah.
But they really weren't great in 2022 either when they had the number 1 offense in the country. So I think Heupel understood the urgency of having to do something and do something big this year because of the way the season ended with Vanderbilt, because of the standard, the money that's been put into the program, the expectations of championships. So there wasn't anyone else that you could bring in that was available that would have shown the urgency and the seriousness of wanting to have the best on your staff and get better than hiring Jim Knowles.
All right, look, we're all about the history, traditions, and heroes of the Southeastern Conference in college football. Maury Gaston from down in Sylacauga, now in Mountain Brook, asked, who are Shields Watkins? W.S. Shields was a banker. In 1921, financed a 3,200-seat venue to watch college football games in Knoxville. And his wife's name was Alice. Shields Watkins Field. They keep it to this day. And I believe the Haslams gave Tennessee circa $200 million, but they did not want to change because old man Haslam played for General Neyland. Loren, it's just like Ben Hill Griffin, the great businessman down in Florida. I hope we never change that. And I think out of respect, that's really cool. Think about that next time you need some gas. I don't care who you're a fan of. That's pretty cool because the Haslams could have named it, and put gas pumps at every stadium portal, whatever.
Yeah.
But Loren, you heard what Vince just said about Tennessee. You cover Florida, but you know the whole SEC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your takeaway on what you saw out of Tennessee this year. Obviously, you didn't like what happened when they came to visit, and
right.
they brought flowers and a gift. But what are your thoughts on what's going on up in Tennessee from Florida?
Well, you look at it's also is that pretty good if you look at it from. You look at what Jim Knowles was able to do at Ohio State and the ability to really elevate that group defensively. Yeah. And I think if you look at Penn State, the issues were not on defense. They were just they just didn't get it done. And like we mentioned before, some injuries on offense that affected them. But I agree with Vince. I mean, Jim is a guy that has been everywhere. He's defended, the Big 12, the diversity of defenses there, the Big 10, and now come to the SEC. I think it's a great play by Josh Heupel, and it's somebody that can then allow Heupel to refocus his energy back on offense, not have to really worry about it. You talk about the D-line and their success there, and it's an upfront league. So, you keep the people there. You bring in Jim Knowles with his ability to defend a number of different offenses in different ways. I mean, it was kind of like a, oh shoot, I mean, they're not on the schedule this year, so that's a good thing. So,
shoot, yeah, sure,
yeah. So, because Jim Knowles running the defense with the ability and the talent that they've been able to bring there, I mean, is immense. And so, I'm a big Heupel guy. I think he's a good dude. I like what he does offensively. You know that. And I mean, I think that's a great hire. If you're looking from a Florida fan, you're thinking, man, I wish we'd maybe grabbed him. That would be the creme de la creme on the defensive side. I mean, no offense to Brad White, I think he'll do a great job at Florida, but you talking about when you look at top 2 or 3 guys, when you talk about defense, he's right there. I mean, Jim Knowles is as good as they come, and one would even say, I mean, no offense to Matt Patricia, but you throw Jim Knowles back in that Ohio State team, I even think that defense, I mean, they're doing some different things, but from standing up, bowing up, and just going toe-to-toe to people, I think the Ohio State 2024 version was a little bit more physical under Jim Knowles than it was under Matt Patricia. So, when you look at that, you guys referenced the defensive line coach. Give me the name again.
Rodney Gardner.
Yeah, Gardner. I'm losing my mind.
Gardner,
You take Gardner, Larry Johnson at Ohio State. I really say they're 1 and 2 maybe in coaching D-line in the country. So you take that with the Jim Knowles. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, look out for – I mean, if they can get it going offensively, I mean, look at Tennessee. I mean, they're a good football team this year. I mean, they probably – I think it got away from them against Vanderbilt. And like I said before, when you got those running quarterbacks, you kind of look at the way it was with Alabama and Florida State. Those running quarterbacks, when the boulder starts rolling down the hill, it's tough to stop them. Yeah. But Jim Knowles will be somebody that I think can steady the ship, and I really like that hire.
Yeah, I mean, Vince, that's a ginormous hire. National championship guy.
Yeah, and he was, and Tennessee went up against him in the first round 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So they saw it firsthand, and actually Josh Heupel even referenced that in his initial quote when they announced the hiring of Jim Knowles. So just to piggyback a couple things off what Loren was talking about, at Oklahoma State, he had the number 4 defense in the country, and this is when the Big 12 was putting up 40, 50 points a game. And he had the number 4 defense, not even allowing 300 yards per game in that league. And he had to adjust when he was there too. That's one of the things that impressed me is he was like almost exclusively man in running his defense. And then he realized in the Big 12, I'm going to have to zone sometimes. I'm going to have to change the look. I can't just stay a man. They're going to spread me out and have success. So he adjusted. His defense got better every single year, including being one of the best in the biz in that year. And then he used that to catapult himself and get the Ohio State job. And then the Ohio State job, he had the number 1 defense in the country. And so you look at all the dudes he had when you study that Ohio State tape and what he did defensively. I mean, having a safety like Caleb Downs is a dream for him. That's how you get the number 1 defense in the country. You have great scheme. You're a, quote, evil genius, and you have 5 stars puzzle pieces to play with, like Caleb Downs. And this is a safety-driven defense. They'll do a lot of 3-high safety, and they use that middle safety and put them all over the field. Line them up like as a Leo edge rusher. Line them up a linebacker. Line them up on the slot and able to cover any wide receiver you want to put out there. Having all the answers with elite players and scheme, that's what Jim Knowles is all about. Now, though, and so he impressed me not only at Ohio State with the dudes, but at Oklahoma State when he didn't have a bunch of those 5 stars. So he's had success in both. So that's a positive. Now, the one drawback you hear and read about him is how complicated his defense is and how difficult it is to learn. That's something he's had to adjust at. And he realizes, he's admitted that it is difficult. It is complicated. He said he's tried to adjust and teach it better because at Penn State, James Franklin was basically saying, we weren't playing fast on defense. Basically saying, that defense is too hard. These guys aren't getting it. We need to win now and play fast, and they're not figuring it out. So he tried to adjust as the year went on, probably too late by the time, those things happen. But what version of Jim Knowles do you get? Do you get the one that understands that, hey, we got to win this year, so I got to figure out how to get the most out of the guys we have here, and then what can they take and understand, what can they do and operate with, and then we'll roll with that in terms of how much you put in. So he's got to be able to have a feel, because Josh Heupel's not bringing him in to get his own guys and, maybe in the second year they'll be better, in the third year. They gotta be elite this year. And so we'll see what kind of version you get, but at least he has admitted that that's an area he needs to improve in.
Well,
And I think go ahead.
No, it's a paratrooper defense. You jump out, you land, you got to be ready to fight. You don't
Yeah.
have, typically it takes about a year and a half to learn a defense, and if it's really complicated, it can take more. And y'all are both doing a great job of breaking down the details and all like that. And it says a lot about the duality of coaching today. You have a great resume. You won a national championship in 24. In 25, you are defensive coordinator over one of the most visual train wrecks we've seen and what happened to Penn State this year. Now you're coming to Tennessee. I'm with Loren, man. If you don't like Josh Heupel, you probably didn't like, Hugh Beaumont, Ward Cleaver, that is, for you that don't know.
Right.
I love Ward, though.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think to Vince's point, you look at, you're at Ohio State, you got a Caleb Downs. You're at Oklahoma State, you didn't have Caleb Downs, you had some lesser people. I think maybe Knowles got a little lost in the sauce thinking, well, I'm going to Penn State. It's similar, but it isn't. And I think he realized too late there is a drop down in talent, even at Penn State, as good as Penn State has been. And you don't have that. And like Vince said, I mean, by then it was too late and it wasn't going well. They corrected some things. And I think, bowled up and did a little better there. But by then it was obviously Franklin was gone and the rails were it was off the rails by then.
One other thing he doesn't bring to the table is high-level recruiting. Now, I understand coordinators aren't often, the lead recruiters or, they have so much on their plate already. But similar to Tim Banks, who didn't do a ton in terms of recruiting, Knowles hasn't been known for that and actually took some criticism from Ohio State. Now, they have a pretty high bar for recruiting at Ohio State.
Yeah.
But, when you're not in the recruiting rankings, people are like, what is he doing? And so it'll be interesting to see the dynamic of what he keeps on the staff if they keep guys that maybe are more to what he wants to do in terms of the on-field or guys that are more higher-level recruiters, how he balances those. Now, Rodney Garner, to me, is both, so that should be another no-brainer. But you got to, if your DC is, he's got to be able to bring. Tim Banks didn't have a reputation. I think the recruits. You read quotes, they weren't talking about Tim Banks. They were talking about the relationship with position coaches, things like that. They have to connect with the DC, and you have to have them involved more than they have been. So how much does he do there? Who does he keep on the staff? And can they utilize his reputation to recruit to, even if he's not like their primary recruiter? That is to get those dudes, and they need to elevate there, especially in the secondary, to get those safeties. You got to do more in recruiting, and you got to have somebody to help you get those dudes if you're not going to get them.
And then you got to keep recruiting them once you get them. All right. Quick question from @Bulldog Mississippi. 2 syllables here. Mississippi, not Mississippi. Is Tennessee going to have to pay the buyout from Penn State? I'm sure they will.
Probably to some degree. I know they negotiated it.
Okay.
And I haven't seen those numbers. Him coming on to Tennessee was a much bigger deal in breaking it down and talking about it than those details. He's out either way. But yeah, I have not seen the specific numbers, but I'm sure he's not getting the max of what he would have, because for these jobs, when you got to try to get another job and you want to coach, so you probably have to give some up to be able to do that.
Yeah, and they do. And we all know, everybody watching, recruiting's the lifeblood of your program. And, but I think in the case, Loren, you cover Florida so closely. But again, this conference. Everybody is going to recruit fairly well. Even Vanderbilt is 35 or 40. But problem is, you could be 8th in the country, but 6th in the SEC.
Yes.
It's a crowded house. So you've got to have outstanding coaching. Explain this to me. Curt Cignetti. He's got maybe 6 guys on that team that were big-time recruits. Mm-hmm. Now, Fernando Mendoza went to Cal. He didn't light the world up out there. Mm-hmm. He saw Brian Harsin coming like Bo Nix did. He played for him 1 year at Auburn. He ran to Oregon. He went to Indiana. Kind of talk about how Curt Cignetti, all the tough coaches, the hard asses, they're the ones that are winning. You try to soft pedal these kids, try to be their friends, try to be hip. Everybody tells me Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins, that's the future of coaching. Bull spit. It is not. It's not the future, unless you like being crappy. But you got to be tough. The kids want to be pushed, don't they? It's so
Yeah, I mean,
obvious. Never
how
been more
many,
obvious.
how many, since you've known me, I think from day one, you've
Yeah.
heard me say,
Yeah.
Florida didn't practice hard enough, or you got to do this, you got to be physical here, you got to do those things. You can be well liked as a coach and be hard ass. I mean, you can. You got to set the standard Monday through Thursday that we are here to work. We are not taking any shortcuts. We are not taking anything for granted. We are going to button up every part of the game. And that's what Curt Cignetti is. That's what I was going to say earlier when you were talking about it. I think one of the greatest individuals I've ever met was Bill Snyder, who up until Curt Cignetti, if you've ever made the drive from Kansas City to Manhattan, Kansas, you know for him to ever win a Big 12 championship at Kansas State is a miracle. And before Cignetti, I think was the best coaching job ever in the history of the sport. But being next door, growing up 3.5 hours from Bloomington, knowing the state, knowing what basketball means to the state and that school. I mean, I know maybe some of our listeners here, but for instance, Florida kids don't remember Indiana being good in basketball, but we do. And the passion, they're still looking for the next Bob Knight and the first title since 1987. That's what they want. So for him to go there and have his team as the number one team in the country in football, and there were some good coaches at Indiana before. I mean, they had some really good dudes that could coach football, and it just didn't work. But I think Curt Cignetti and what he's done there is the fact that I'm not taking any excuses. We are going to step the right way every rep.
Yeah.
We're going to work the right way every day. It is not a choice to come watch film. It is not a choice to prepare. It is not a choice to behave. Everybody is going to buy in. And then you get that with, I think you got to give their people credit, whoever is their personnel department in the transfer portal, because like you said, none of those guys were built from scratch. Yeah. These are all guys that were elsewhere identified, and they're out there making plays. I mean, they flat out, and then I think they did get the corner out of Chaminade Madonna that played with Jeremiah Smith in high school. That kid's a stud. He's like 5'9", maybe 175 pounds, and he's getting after it. You identify these people from these good programs throughout the country that have been successful, and then you get them on your football team, and then you hit in the transfer portal, and then you don't take no stuff. And that's what Curt Cignetti has done at Indiana, and that's why they are where they are.
Yeah, Vince, and you think about this. Kids go in the portal. You know, I was looking at the portal last night, guys leaving different schools. You pick them. Who cares? If they were any good, they'd be staying, and the collective would go out and get the money to keep them. I'm sorry. Before you ever buy a new car, truck, or SUV, even from LandersFordMemphis.com, located at Poplar and Houston Levy, you're going to test drive it. You're going to see how it works. If a guy's been in your program for a year or two and he was a 4 or 5-star out of high school and he's got 23 catches for 273 yards over 2 years, you know what? Goes back to the old saying in the country. If a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. Be gone. That's more money to buy somebody else, Vince.
Yeah, Rob, I disagree. The last 4 Heisman Trophy winners are transfers. You can be a great player and then have a better spot for you. And whether it's money motivated, I agree with you. There's a lot of decisions that are being made on money. Guys that aren't living up to their expectations are now trying to cancel that disappointment, which in some cases have a lot to do with them, not everybody else. And it's kind of like they're blaming everyone else. So they're still living off of their original recruiting status. Look at TJ Finley looking for another home.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, it's no. Sorry, you've had too many opportunities. That's not what this is for.
Time to get a job.
Yeah, there should be some sort of guidelines and some sort of standard for why you're transferring. So, but anyway, that's a show for another day. But there are examples of guys making the most of the system and transferring for good reasons. Some, unfortunately, are listening to the people around them that don't give them good advice. It's very unfortunate. Tennessee had a signee, Legend Bay. You guys probably heard about that whole drama. He signed with Tennessee, but only because he wasn't old enough to sign where he wanted, and his mom and brother wanted him to go to Tennessee. So he signed with Tennessee, which was a flip. He was a Tennessee commit. He flipped to Ohio State, then flipped to Tennessee and signed with them. Then it came out the next day that he was planning his exit already, that he was going to ask for his release when he could. And then when he's 18, he was going to sign with Ohio State where he wanted. So, and that's what happened. He asked for his release and he was granted his release. So he just signed last week and he's already gone. But he couldn't make up his mind because of the family wanted one thing. He wanted one thing, all this. Just so unfortunate that there's so many voices in these kids' ears. And my guess is that's not the last time he's going to be on the move, because people that are on the move a lot continue to be on the move a lot. Look at Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola is in the transfer portal for Nebraska. You know how many high schools he supposedly went to? 4.
Yeah.
I mean, that's people exploiting him too.
Yeah,
right. Living off of him. So that's where it sucks, is the bad situations and the bad decisions that are out there, but it's not everybody, not, broad stroke.
Well, yeah. And I'm going to tell you, I don't want to say all kids transferring are bad, but most of it is. Now, you're right about quarterbacks. Let's see, prior to the portal, which became the law of the land, October 15th of 2018, prior to that, historically, 42% of quarterbacks who signed with a college finished at a different college when their career was over. So that's the one position more than anything. But as far as all these guys, like TJ Finley, I mean, seriously, this guy is like guys during the war between the states would sign up for the bounty and go sign up for another one as an assumed identity. I mean, that's what that is. And it just isn't going to work out. Loren, you're right. It's time for TJ to go get a job as a scientist or whatever his degree's in. I don't care. But he ain't a college quarterback big time. And when you transfer from Power 4 down, you start 1/7 as many games in the NFL. That's the number that Dave Bartu has given us. And there are sometimes it's just like in a relationship, with your girlfriend or your wife. It ain't going to work out, as they say. It ain't going to happen. You got to move on. Mm-hmm. But you should try everything. The problem I have with the portal is I've just never quit anything that I cared about. I have never, because the first time you quit, it's really hard. The second time, it's a little more difficult. The third time, you don't even think about it. So TJ Finley, he's basically unemployable, Loren.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about I'm not a guy that would jump ship or bounce around. Maybe it's our generation. We just built different.
It is.
But yeah. And it's just, I think, I always say, man, shame on the adults.
Yeah.
We have this NIL issue because of the adults. We have the transfer issue because of the adults. The adults let this happen, and they let the kids run rampant, and they didn't say, hey, we could give them $500 a month, let them go out for a pizza and take the best lady out or whatever they want to do. We could have did this a long time ago, but we thought a sweatsuit, a watch, and a pair of shoes was good enough for them, and a college degree. And in some regard, it is. And that's an argument for another time, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just rampant now. And you got people just jumping, bouncing around, and we have totally lost the student in the student athlete, because there's no way you could bounce around from school to school to school and have any credits that equate to a degree in most cases. So it's just off the rails. And like I said, shame on the NCAA. They could have put an end to a lot of this and set some standards a long time ago and put a model in place I think people would have been satisfied with, because they wouldn't have known any different.
Yeah.
But instead, when they got challenged by a lot of different coaches, including Steve Spurrier and others, to make this happen, they chose to turn a blind eye. And our own Franz Beard talks about the NCAA at will. But like I said, blame the adults.
Yeah, and I will say this. Compromise, not always, but a lot of the times, is merely the victory of cowards. And Vince, going along to get along. The NCAA, if they would have put a basic pension, healthcare benefits, and stuff like the NFL does and addressed these issues years ago, we wouldn't be where we are today, would we?
No, and allowing them in the video games and just like,
Yeah.
you know, it's always talking
Right.
about
Yes.
a little bit of money, but no power and you know, and money, that they didn't want to give up any of the little piece of the pie. Now they're giving up a whole lot of their piece of the pie. And then there's just it's such a spiral, because now you have like Utah getting into the private equity. Now you're starting to take money from these businesses, and Rob, you know about that. Now you're basically making them the boss of things, and then it just is really asking for trouble.
Wow.
But one quick thing, I wonder what the portal numbers are going to look like, because remember now, we don't have a spring portal for these kids as a backup plan. So does that mean that kids now are going to jump in the portal and not wait until after spring? Because some of them probably said, "Oh, let me see how spring practice goes. I'll give them a chance." Now, without that, they're like, "I better go get my cash now." So this portal may just explode in terms of the numbers, and it's already been crazy.
Yeah, we're about out of time, but I can tell you, I've never had a job in my career where I thought about how quickly I could get out of where I was. I mean, I've always loved where I am. I mean, I love it. I'll make it work. I just don't ever fail. I will find a way to make it win. And brilliant commentary by both of y'all. Vince Ferrara, catch him on the Sports Animal 99.1 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Absolutely one of the best. Should be on TV. I mean, Vince, your knowledge of the game is freaking awesome. And Loren as well. And also Jake Wimberly and our executive producer, Brenden Martin. Cannot thank all of y'all enough, and all the people watching this show. And I love this one stone angel guy, man. He's tough as nails, fighting cancer. There are a lot of people that watch this show, and I get texts off the show, and sometimes they say we help make their day. Man, you don't know what that makes us feel like. All I can tell you is this: let us know what we can do to do a better job. So share us and like us. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We got the best audience around. And I'll just say this: our sponsors, Landers Ford, is open every day of the week except Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department does round trip transportation and picks you up. Just make it simple. You're looking for a Ford car, truck, or SUV, ask for Brad Bellamy, the GM. He'll walk you right through the process. They're right down the street from our good friends here at Hewlett and Dunn. Here we go, like the weatherman, Hewlett and Dunn in Collierville, Tennessee, on the historic square. They're open every day of the week. They got the best clothes, boots for men and women: Barber, Filson, Pendleton, Schaefer, Devil Dog Jeans, STS. They've got the luggage. If you want to look better than you've ever looked in your life, shop at hewlettandunn.com. They're open right now every day of the week through Christmas. Also, Rumble Boxing, Union and McLean, Midtown Memphis. And hempforpros.com. You got aches and pains, you can't sleep. Hempforpros.com. 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 Energy, chill, and lights out gummies. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll see you tonight.